This is a story time of how my mom tried to get rid of me and my little sister. While my mom was pregnant with my little sister, my dad died, so she started using a lot of drugs. Once my little sister was born, she lost custody of us, and we had a close family friend taking care of us. My mom was never allowed to be alone with us. She would only get supervised visits. She started fighting really hard to get custody of us again, and then she finally did. I thought she fought so hard to get custody of us again because she would do better, but instead everything was the same. But the day would come when I would find out why she tried so hard to get custody of us again. Since she had custody of us, she was able to be alone with us. One day she said she had a surprise for us and told us to get in the car, and she blindfolded us. We were still blindfolded once we got to our destination, and she told us that we would have to play a game to get our surprise. She was standing pretty far away from us, but we could hear her voice. She said one of her friends were behind us and we would have to do a trust fall to get the surprise. I was holding my baby sister's hand and I felt her grip get tighter. For some reason I got a weird feeling and I decided that I didn't want the surprise from her. So I took off the blindfold. When I looked behind me, we were on the edge of the top of a building.
Story time about how I got my ex toxic best friend jumped. So a little background information, I was 16 and a sophomore in high school. And like any of these toxic best friend story times, she was super jealous of me for literally no reason. She would literally try to be better than me in everything. Like when I did a sport or a club, she would join immediately right after. And it wasn't oh, I'm gonna join my best friend. No, it was, I'm gonna join so that way I can show her that I'm better than her. For example, in 6th grade, I was captain on the volleyball team, and she decided that she was gonna try out her sophomore year. She played it off as if she just wanted to try it out, but then I got announced captain, and she was pissed off when she heard that. She literally blocked me on everything, and she came from a super wealthy family, so she was used to getting whatever she wanted. And my whole friend group would literally tell me, you need to stop being friends with her, she's toxic, she's this, she's that. The only thing that stopped me from being friends with her was the blackmail. Part 2 about how I got my toxic ex-best friend jumped. So like I said, the only thing that was stopping me from not being her friend was the blackmail that she had. Every time that I pissed her off, or even just randomly, she would be like, oh, I'm gonna send this out. I'm gonna expose you. She was just overall a shitty friend. So I had an exposing account on Instagram where I would expose people in my class. It got banned, but she DM'd the account the blackmail. Little did she know it was literally me who was running it. Obviously, I didn't post it, but I showed one of my friends. And we kind of made a plan to get rid of the blackmail. So my birthday was coming up and I was going to Disney, and my mom said that I could invite 2 friends. Originally, I wasn't going to invite Tessa, but since I had this plan, I invited her and one of my other friends. On the 3rd night, my friend and I decided to take our plan into action. Tessa was sleeping, so I went on her phone and I went and deleted all the pictures. Story time about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So a little background information. I was 14 and in 8th grade, and my best friends and I were having a sleepover. And right before we had went to sleep, we were all talking about this one TikTok trend that was going around. It's like this trend where girls would go and put wax on their boyfriends while they were sleeping and then take it off. Well, I didn't think anything of it, so that night I went to sleep. I should have knew this was gonna happen because I'm always the butt of the joke whenever it comes to our friend group. Like, I'm always the one getting picked on. Like, there was this one thing that my friend Ashley saw online. It was like, if you put white nail polish on your teeth, it would make your teeth whiter. So who did they decide to try it out on? Yup, me. And yes, I could have said no, but these were my best friends. I didn't think that they would intentionally hurt me. Anyway, so like I said, I go to sleep and all of a sudden I wake up in the middle of the night to something very, very, very hot on my face. I open my eyes and all of my friends are standing above me with their flashlights on. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow while I was asleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, went to sleep, didn't think anything was gonna happen, and then I wake up and all of them are standing above me with their flashlights on. And then I realized that Ashley has a stick in her hand. Once I realized that there was wax on the other end of the stick, I started screaming. So then Kelsey decides to cover my mouth. She's like, shh, it's not that bad, I promise, like, don't worry. I get up real quick, I run to the bathroom, and there's like this pink transparent wax on my eyebrow. It was about 3 a.m. and we're all sitting there trying to find ways to get this wax off of my brow. I'm tired of this, grabs it and rips it off my forehead. So I'm crying at this point. Like, I'm in 8th grade, I'm about to have my glow up, and y'all gotta ruin it with taking my eyebrow off. So nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night because they thought that I was gonna do something to them. So I acted all cool. I was like, no, it's fine, I can just draw it on. when in reality, I was going to cut this bitch's hair. Part 3 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night. I acted like it was okay because I was plotting in my head that I was gonna cut one of the ponytails off. So I go over to their house next week, and every single day that week they were telling me how good my drawn on eyebrow looked. It didn't actually look good, and none of my hairs were growing back. So around 12 o'clock, all of us are ready to go to bed. I'm laying down, pretending that I'm sleeping, and they think I'm sleeping, so they're over there talking shit about me on her bed, Ashley's bed. I wasn't sure which one's eyebrow I should rip off because the one ripped off my eyebrow, but then the other one put the wax on my eyebrow. They were like, she's sleeping. I don't think she's gonna do anything. She doesn't even have the balls to do anything. So around 4 in the morning, everybody is dead asleep. I get up, and Ashley had her hair in a ponytail. So that was easy enough. I grabbed a pair of scissors out of my book bag, and I cut her hair off.
Am I wrong for using my now husband's diary to get him to fall in love with me? My husband and I had been married for a few years now. We went to the same high school. I was a little weird in high school, and he was a lot more popular than I was, and I had a really big crush on him, but I knew I had no chance. One day in class, I asked to go to my locker to get my homework, and my locker was really close to his, and I noticed that his locker didn't have a lock on it. And I know this was a complete invasion of privacy, but I was very curious, so I looked inside of his locker. When I looked in his locker, I found this notebook, and as I was reading through this notebook, it sounded like a diary. He wrote about his life and all the things that he loved and his hobbies and what was going through his mind. I basically hit the jackpot because I had a huge crush on him. So I took the notebook and I went inside the bathroom. I took out my phone and I took pictures of every single page inside his diary. Then I put his notebook back into the locker where I found it. My sneaky little self started messaging him through social media, and as we were talking, he seemed to really like me because we were so similar and had all the same interests. I was the perfect girl for him. 5 years later, he still doesn't know that I used his diary to make him fall in love with me. Am I wrong for leaving my husband after I found out that he had cancer? So my husband and I had been married for about 10 years before we started becoming distant. A little while after, he actually cheated on me with one of my close friends. After that, nothing was ever the same between me and him. Now don't get me wrong, I still loved him, but things could never go back to the way they used to be. Eventually, he fell sick, started losing a lot of weight, having trouble breathing, getting random rashes on his skin. So we both agreed that he should go to the hospital to get checked. So he went to the hospital and had to wait a few days to get the results. A few days had passed, so he went back to the hospital to get his results. When he came back home, I asked him what his results were. He said everything was fine, there was nothing to worry about. Then he put his keys on the counter and hopped into the shower. A couple days before, I had lost my credit card. I looked everywhere for it, couldn't find it, but the only place I didn't look was my husband's car. So I grabbed his keys while he was in the shower and I went to his car to look for my credit card. I was thinking maybe it fell out of my wallet while I was sitting in one of the seats. While I was looking for the credit card, I found a folder from the hospital he just went to. When I looked inside the folder, there was his test result. It was a biopsy test that confirmed he had cancer. So I went back inside to confront him for lying to me. Come back for part 2. This is part 2 of the story of me leaving my husband after I found out that he had cancer. So after I found the positive test results in his car that confirmed he had cancer, I went back inside to confront him for lying to me. I was sitting down waiting for him to get out of the shower. But then I kind of decided that I didn't want to confront him. Our marriage was already going downhill and I was already having thoughts about leaving him anyway. I mean, he did cheat on me with my close friend. I know this might make me sound like a terrible person, but I didn't want to be there for him. I didn't want to be his main support system mentally or physically. And cancer is a lot to deal with. I didn't want to be in and out of the hospital, spending multiple days there, sleeping there, paying all of the bills myself. It would be too much for me. So I decided I was going to pack my things and leave without telling him when or why. And I mean, he didn't know that I knew he had cancer, so he wouldn't think that I was leaving him because of that. So I knew I needed to leave before he decided to tell me he had cancer, so it didn't look like I left him because of that. So the next day, he went to work, and then I went to work. As in packing all my stuff, and then I left. Afterwards, he kept begging me to come back, so I blocked him, and I haven't talked to him since. Story time of the trio that killed their victims and fed them to their neighbors. 2 women and 1 man who were in a love triangle would lure young women to their house by offering them work as a nanny. A lot of these women who were in search for work trying to get the little money would accept the offer and go to the trio's home. They expected there to be a child whom they would get introduced to take care of, but baby, were they wrong. When they were in the trio's home, a man would attack them and kill them with a hammer and then cut them up into pieces. After they were done with the murders, one of the women would use the remains of the human flesh and make traditional stuffed meat pastries. Then they would go out on the street corners and sell those meat pastries to people in their community. Motherfuckers was eating their own friends. They didn't feed all of their victims to their neighbors. Sometimes they would eat their victims themselves for lunch or dinner. They claimed human meat was no different than beef. It tasted the same and had the same consistency. So it's like, why should I spend my money on beef if I could just kill somebody and eat them? One of the victims was a 17-year-old mother to an 18-month-old baby. They killed and butchered the mother right in front of the 18-month-old baby. And the next day, they fed the baby pieces of her mother for lunch in a pastry. That way, the baby would never know she was eating her own mother. What they did next to the baby was even worse. Part 2 of the trio that killed their victims and fed them to their neighbors. years. After the trio had killed a 17-year-old mother in front of her 18-month-old baby, then fed the remains of the mother in pastry form to the 18-month-old baby, they took the baby in and raised it as their own. Thankfully, their whole scheme ended when one of the women tried to use a credit card that belonged to one of the victims who was reporting missing near their home. Like, how dumb can you possibly be? When they searched their home, they dug up their garden and found 2 bodies of a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old woman. When all the news came out about how people in the community had eaten their own neighbor's remains inside these pastries that they had bought from the trio, so many people were upset. Upset ain't even the word. But the man in the trio's brother claimed that he couldn't have done this to the women because his brother was a vegetarian. But eventually, the man and the 2 women in the trio confessed to their crimes. They said they did what they did because they claimed the women they killed would eventually give birth to thieves and lowlives and claimed they were controlling the population. The man and 1 woman in the trio were sentenced 71 years in prison and the other woman was sentenced 68 years. And a shocking discovery, the police chief in charge of the investigation discovered that he himself had eaten the murdered women's flesh.
Story time about how my bank might have ruined my chances of going to an Olivia Rodrigo concert. So a little background information, in December I got tickets to Olivia's concert. I thought it would be the perfect Christmas gift for my sister and I to go to California and go to her concert, and I got 2 floor seats. So I was super excited when I gave her the tickets. We were both like screaming, that we were going to be going to a concert. We had the best seats. Well, knowing that I had the tickets, I hadn't checked on them for a few months. And this concert is on May 20th of 2022. Well, a few days ago, I was going on Ticketmaster to check the tickets, and it said that they had been voided, and I had no idea why, so I was frantically trying to figure out what the hell had happened to my tickets. And I didn't want my sister thinking, oh my god, like she really didn't get the tickets. So I was sending emails with Ticketmaster, and they said that somebody had filed a dispute. If you don't know what that means somebody was like, hey, that's my money, I'm taking it back.